The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Survival Tips for Small Businesses During COVID-19 webinar. We know these are unprecedented times for you, your business, and your family. There is no playbook for what we're facing, and everyone has a lot of questions. In fact, we received over 200 questions for this webinar over the weekend, and we intend on answering all of them. If not in this webinar, then in the ones following. There are a ton of small business topics we can dive into. So here at QuickBooks, we'll be hosting a webinar series about COVID-19 and small business assistance. We'll get further into the weeds involving some of the more specific challenges you might be facing. We also want to thank all of you for tuning in with us today. We're going to spend the next hour together with two experts in small business. The first is Keith Yurgosky, a business consultant with the Small Business Development Center at the University of Scranton. Also with us is entrepreneur in residence at the UCLA Anderson School of Management, Rod Kurtz. And I'm Alex Swolinski, your host for today. I'm part of the QuickBooks marketing team here at QuickBooks. We're going to begin with our first discussion topic. What are other businesses doing right now? With mandatory quarantines and stay-at-home orders, a lot of small businesses are having to get creative to get cash flow coming in. I'll start with you, Keith. What are some unique and successful things that you've seen small businesses doing differently right now?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Alex. And on behalf of America's Small Business Development Center Network, I want to thank you for, first of all, QuickBooks and Intuit for your partnership over the years. You make our jobs a lot easier with the, the support you give to small businesses. It's great that you're doing this right now. So to get to your question, what do you see small businesses doing differently right now? Small businesses have had to adapt in a really short period of time versus in a situation that is just unprecedented, as you had said earlier. I'm seeing hardware stores right now that are doing do-it-yourself videos to help walk through, home improvement projects. Restaurants in the Bronx, New York. They put together a pizza kit because they know kids are stuck at home and parents are trying to figure out something to keep the kids occupied. So they've developed pizza kits. Bakeries are putting together cupcake kits. I know Dunkin' Donuts here locally has now put together a kit where you can stop in and you can decorate your own donuts. So those are some neat ways that businesses are trying to transition. I also have photographers and candy stores who are partnering, knowing that kids aren't going to be able to go get their picture taken with the Easter Bunny. So they have an Easter Bunny holding a chalkboard with the kid's name on it, or holding an Easter basket with the kid's name on it, and they're figuring out ways to make money to keep their businesses going. I have a local convenience store that's now doing a 12-mile delivery of beer, wine, slushies, as well as all your convenience store items. And then also local bars and distilleries who are converting to hand sanitizer manufacturers. So realizing there's a need, they have the ability to fulfill the need. It's actually heartwarming to see how people are reacting to this.
Yeah, Rod, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great recap of what I'm seeing on the ground as well, Keith. And, I've been talking to business owners pretty much nonstop since this began, not just my own clients and companies I work with, but really any other entrepreneur and business owner I've known from the past, and they're all dealing with this together. I mean, unprecedented is an understatement. We've never seen anything like this. And when challenges arise, not just in business, but in life, I always try to draw the closest analogy possible to see, what is something we've been through before that feels like this. And I think a lot of people are wondering, is this the Great Recession of 2008 all over again? Is it 9/11? I actually think the closest parallel is World War II. If you think about it, we're dealing with this common enemy, and we know we will win. We will get through this, but life in the homeland has been completely upended, and that of course translates to businesses. We're seeing many businesses, especially bars and restaurants, shut down, and there's a challenge to adapt. And so the same way you're seeing back in World War II, you saw car companies start to make warplanes because they were leveraging their experience and expertise in building things, heavy metal, things like that. The parallel we're seeing now is Ford and GM are now making ventilators. You're seeing New Balance, the sneaker company, is making face masks. You're seeing Tito's Vodka is now making hand sanitizer. So while your company can't necessarily contribute to the war effort in that sense, you do have to make a pivot to find where your customers are at now. So where are they? They're at home. I'm seeing hair salons are now giving online tutorials. One thing I joke about is, a month from now, when we can maybe come up for air, we're all going to have longer hair. What are some styling tips that can help me deal with that? That's how you maintain that customer bond. I'm seeing a friend owns a company called Pet and Home Care that's typically a dog walking company. The challenge they're running into is everyone is at home now, so they don't need dog walkers. So they're taking their network of dog walkers and turning them into grocery delivery people. A friend of mine runs a company called Shoptiques, which is an online marketplace for brick and mortar boutiques. They're starting to market, stay-at-home outfits and comfy loungewear and things like that. And they've actually seen a surge in business because these brick and mortar boutiques can't open their doors anymore, so they're going online. So I haven't run into a single company yet where I can't find somewhat of a pivot. The reality is you probably are not going to make as much money as you did in the good old days of just a month ago, but any money coming in the door, any employees you can keep is going to help with that continuity when we do get out of this. And it's important to remember that we will.
Yeah, those are some really great points. So just to summarize, both Keith, what you and Rod are discussing, you're mentioning adapting your business. So taking some of your existing products and using them for different purposes. Also selling things like bonds, like for example, like selling $100 worth of gift card for and letting your customer get $110 when they cash it in. Another thing would be like diversifying your income. So changing your business model from in-person to virtual. Also considering what skills or products that you have that people are in need of right now. Did you want to?
Yeah, and it's important to keep in mind that there is this "we're all in this together" sentiment, and people who are stuck at home know that their favorite local businesses are struggling and are more willing to support them. Not outright charity, though you are seeing GoFundMe pages, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but people, are still eating and drinking and doing activities. They're just at home. So it's figuring out, we're seeing here in Los Angeles where I am, and I'm sure elsewhere in the country, that bars are selling pre-made cocktails and delivering almost like a happy hour in a box because people are cooped up. They want, a nice stiff drink, and it's a way of sort of making that connection. I think the important thing too is, it's not just about revenue right now. Obviously, any money coming in the door is good money, but it's making sure your customers don't forget about you from when we get through this. You'll have been there for them in a time of need for them. We're all scared, we're all vulnerable, we're all cooped up and kind of losing our minds. And so you as a business, it's important to step into the shoes of your customer and figure out what do they need right now. Obviously, you want to keep your business going. That's job one. But it's really good old-fashioned customer service. What do your customers need? How are you communicating with them? How are you bridging that divide again, so when we get through this, they're going to have even better, more positive feelings about you as a business?
Right. Yeah. Then another thing that a lot of small businesses are doing differently lately is they're asking for help, right? I mean, small business owners are savvy and they're resourceful, and a lot of them aren't used to asking for help. So Keith, what are some ways that business owners can get out of their comfort zone and start asking for that sort of assistance?
Well, first and foremost, I think your starting point with any business, and again, I work for the Small Business Development Center at the University of Scranton, and we're part of a national network of SBDCs, we're called, across the state, and we're like the arm of the Small Business Administration that actually sits down and meets with businesses. And your first step right now is, and Alex, just as you said, don't be afraid to ask for help. Pick up the phone, contact and I just saw this on the news of a landlord in New York City who has something like 80 apartment buildings, and he just said, nobody has to pay rent for the next month. So, if you have a landlord or you have a mortgage, call your bank and just understand that everybody's going through this. Banks right now are offering either interest only or payment deferrals. to help you through this. Credit card companies are doing the same thing. Insurance companies are doing it. So, pick up a phone, try to help yourself through this, and also reach out to your local small business development center. You can go to americasSBDC.com, the website, put in your zip code, and you'll find one near you. And I'm working with business owners daily that I've never heard from before to kind of help them through this. There is help out there.
Mm-hmm. Rod, anything from your end?
Yeah, I mean, all great points, Keith. And I know we've been talking this week, and it kind of feels like we're on the front lines of this war effort. And I do really think of it as a war effort where it's all hands on deck. I think, one thing I've been saying to business owners too, on a human level, because this is a very human experience, is that no matter where you think you are right now with your business, you're doing great. And it's important to remember that and have a little self-love here. Even in the best of times, running a business is a noble and challenging endeavor, and never more so now. So it's easy to feel like you're behind the 8 ball and the sky is falling, but you're out there. The fact that you're attending this webinar is a great first step. And I think to Keith's point, my grandmother used to say, go to try school. And what she meant by that was, there's no harm in trying, new things. And I think, as Keith pointed out, this is a time to pick up the phone and call, whether it's your lender or your landlord or whatever. This is going to be a patchwork solution. There's no magic bullet. We are seeing some resources come through the government. We can get into that a little bit later. But I also recommend just talking to other business owners. Here in Santa Monica, California, we have a great main street with a lot of mom and pop type businesses that are all pretty much closed now. I advise them to pick up the phone, talk to other business owners. Have they found a solution with social media or delivery? How have they made a pivot? Even if they're in a completely different industry, just hearing what other people are doing to get by could spark something for you and give you that, temporary solution that helps you get to the other side of this.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of small businesses, they might still be open, or they might be working from home, and it's hard to let their customers even know that they're still doing business.
Yep. And I think we did a poll earlier this week where our initial round of attendees, I think it was something like only 22% were completely closed right now. The other, majority of businesses are either open or open in a limited capacity. So that was very encouraging to see that people are out there fighting and pushing and trying to get through this.
Yeah. You're talking about a poll where we polled about 800 people, and we had about 22% of them say that they're still open in some capacity, whether it's reduced hours or whether it's full hours. And for businesses like that, it's really good to help remind your existing customer base that you are open for business. And if you're not open for business, you can still reach out to them, right? Are there any ways that you think small businesses can or should do that?
I think it's about, figuring out how you can reach customers. So do you have an email list? Are you active on social media? And what I'm seeing really works is businesses that are just being real and being authentic. I think we've all seen, the laundry list of emails from every company we've ever bought something from coming in over the past few weeks. And most of them are just the same kind of boilerplate, not really saying anything. And I think that actually has a negative effect where it can, they're in earnest trying to reach out, but they're not helping me. They're not providing any insight for me. So I've seen brands, just be real. And I got an email from the CEO of an apparel company in New York where he was basically, applauding all the frontline healthcare workers and doctors and nurses. And he outright said, he's kind of an irreverent guy, said, I'm worthless right now. I make t-shirts for a living and I'm not changing anyone's life. And just seeing that candor really resonated with me. I think, again, you have to understand that this is a human experience we're all going through, and that real talk, that real communication is what's going to keep people with you. So if you're scared, say that you're scared. If you're figuring this out as you go along, which all of us are, say you're figuring it out as we go along. No one has the perfect solution here. And I think more than ever, this is something I preach in good times and bad, but authentic messaging is most important, whatever the vehicle is, whether it's email, social media, video, beyond, just be real, be human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are a lot of ways that small businesses can reach out to their customer base. I think a lot small businesses might not think to get the email addresses of all their businesses, especially if they don't conduct business or business communications through email. But it might be a good idea to, after this is all over, to start collecting your customers' emails if you have a way to do that. Small businesses can also use text messages to contact their customers, word of mouth, family and neighbors. Social media is a big thing, a way to reach out to your customer base. So we do have a tips list for email and social media outreach. Rod, like you said, it's really important to be real, and be also be direct. We are getting a ton of emails from every company we've ever given our email to is addressing COVID-19 somehow. So yeah, if you're a small business, you're going to have to break through that noise to get a hold of your customer. You're also going to want to make your outreach visual. You don't want to send them like an email, just a wall of text. You also want to make your email personal. If you know their first name, if you know their last name, always include that in the emails you send them. Try to personalize them, make it shareable, make it easier for them to use as a shareable asset on social media. Also use hashtags. If you're posting on Instagram or Facebook, use a hashtag. It's important to use hashtags of your local community. So if you're a community, or if you're a small business in Omaha, Nebraska, use the hashtag Omaha. And if there's a subset community within Omaha that you live in, try and use that hashtag as well. You can also join community forums. Facebook groups has a lot of small business groups that might be local to your area where you can get together, get ideas, see what other people are doing. Maybe your state or your county or your town has different COVID-19 relief efforts. So you could look into that. And it's always important to find inspiration. See what other businesses are doing as far as the emails that they're sending out, and try and take some of that and repurpose it for your own use. A lot of businesses now are starting to embrace their customer loyalty, because all small businesses have regulars, and these are customers who we know by name or have a familiar face. This is someone you'd say hello to out in the street. They probably don't want to see your business go under. So Keith, we'll start with you. What are some ways that a business owner can tap into their existing customer base?
Well, first, let me touch on your last point. Is a lot of times the businesses that we deal with will always say, "I don't have time for social media," or "I don't have time. I'm busy running my business." Well, guess what? Now you have time. You can learn these skills. So become an expert on hashtags. Go out and find these how-to videos that are out there that teach you this. It's there's free information out there, so you can learn those skills right now that your business is lacking. So you made all great points, Alex, and I think a lot of it now is on the business owner to say whether or not do I want to get out of this or do I want to fold my tent. If you want to go forward, now is the time to learn these skills. So you mentioned customer loyalty. One of the things that we're seeing businesses do now is they're asking their customers to make advanced bookings, like the pay now, get later discounts. They're selling, you mentioned earlier about the bonds where you buy a gift card now and it's worth more later. That's a great thing that small businesses can be doing. Selling vouchers, gift cards. I always tell businesses all the time, push gift cards at every sale. Every time someone makes a sale at your register, push a gift card, because people that have gift cards typically spend about 20% more than the value of that card. And I think it's like 33%, I'm throwing a number out here I'm not positive of, but 33% of them never get cashed in. So that's basically somebody just making a donation to your business. And now is when you need it more than ever. That donation might be what keeps you in business when this is over. Also, if businesses that have a GoFundMe, share that link, because as you said, Rod, you mentioned it, the loyalty, the small business community is close. As big as the United States is, we're small communities. And even in big cities, there's small areas of big cities where people are local and they get to know each other. And those are the ones that you want to reach out to. But developing that mailing list and that way to stay in touch with your customers is vital. You have to have it in today's world.
Yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Rod?
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to it earlier that, there is this sentiment of, wanting to rally around communities and businesses within those communities, and customers are seeing, stores literally boarded up and their favorite restaurants are closed. And so they're looking for ways to not only help the businesses, but have a sense of normalcy, that even if it's takeout from your favorite restaurant, there's a familiarity to it that we're craving right now. I think there's almost this collective nostalgia of the good old days, which again was just a few weeks ago. I think on the communication part, the thing to remember about social media, Keith raises a good point, that a lot of business owners are like, oh, I don't know how to do that, or I'm not good at that, or I don't have time for it. What do you have in abundance right now of? Time to learn it, and it's free. It costs you nothing but that time, which you have plenty of. And again, this could make you a stronger business coming out of this. It's important to get through it, of course, but some of the best practices that will help you survive right now will help you thrive in the future. Quick word on hashtags and sort of the importance of that. I'm sure there's other examples out there, but I was living in New York City during Superstorm Sandy, and I was in Lower Manhattan, where we were without power for about 8 days. And it was almost the opposite of this, where we could, go to restaurants and gather and be out and about. We didn't have any ways to connect because we didn't have electricity. And I lived in the East Village, someone had created an incredibly helpful hashtag that was just hashtag EV open. And basically, if you spotted a local business that was open, you took a picture, just said, Sam's Deli is EV open, and that way people could click and see all the businesses that were open and could support them in that tough time. So think about, your community, look at different Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts. Is there something for your community, to show people that you're open, that you're still going? Another thing I'm seeing is sort of a grassroots movement, in a sense, where local newspapers, again here in Santa Monica, California, they're publishing almost daily articles and sometimes profiles about companies, small businesses that are remaining open. And that can be a great way to get the word out, because very quickly you can stop being top of mind for people. They might just assume you're shut down, and maybe you're not. And so it's raising as much awareness as possible, getting people to make those takeout and delivery orders, across the spectrum. So just a couple tips on that.
Yeah, those are good points. I mean, if you're a storefront that relies on customer walk-ins for your business, you're gonna have to change some of that. You're gonna have to offer different services. You're gonna have to sell different things. Some of the businesses that are hit hardest right now are the businesses that require the customer to small business owner interaction, right? So, like if you run a massage parlor or a hair salon, some of those businesses are really taking a hit, and those are the businesses that can really benefit from some of these tips that you guys have mentioned.
But even that, just to jump in real quick, Alex, with the massage parlor example, I got an email this morning, and another one earlier this week, from a chain of local massage parlors here that were selling chakra stones that you could, would be delivered, and you can kind of do your own at-home treatment. And I saw the email today, talked about on Instagram Live, they're actually doing a sound bath tonight. I don't entirely know what a sound bath is, but basically it's, these jars or whatever, they make noise. It's supposed to be therapeutic. That's something they can do at home. They can't massage you anymore, but they can offer some of these in-home treatments. So it's just very encouraging, inspiring to see really every business I know trying to make that pivot, trying to stay relevant. Again, is it going to be business as usual? No, but everyone's doing what they can.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Thanks for adding that, Rod. So we're going to move on to our top tips when reaching out to your customers and community. So you're always going to want to ask people to support you by making advanced bookings. Like we had mentioned earlier, if you're going to sell a $50 gift card, offer them $60 or some sort of discount or deal, so that will prompt them to purchase a gift card from you. Offer something, in return. So that's one of the benefits, a discount, or maybe buy one, get one, whatever you think that your business can handle. Use pay now, get later discounts and deals, sell vouchers and gift cards. Those are all kind of lumped in the same kind of category. You can also set up a GoFundMe page or a page from another crowdsourcing site. We'll get more on this later. So one of the things, Rod, you mentioned was this massage parlor doing things online, right? Getting creative, going digital, which is a good segue into our next topic. So are there other ways that businesses can get creative besides, or maybe like some other ideas that businesses can use the internet to drive business? Keith, can we start with you?
Well, there's multitude of places. I mean, when I work with a client, the first thing I'll always say to them is, go out and claim the free listings that are available to you for your business. And the starting point would be your Google My Business listing. Google offers everybody a free, every business, a free place on the internet, a free home basically for your business. So go out, enhance that listing, put your hours in, your address, get yourself on Google Maps. So that's the first place, but there's other sites, Bing, Apple Maps, make sure that your business is listed in these places. There's also real fast and low cost options to create a website. If you don't have a website at this point, I mean, now's the time. You have the time, go build one. Places like Wix, Constant Contact, Squarespace, WordPress, Weebly, GoDaddy, they all offer either free or a really low cost opportunity for you to create a website or a web presence for your business to get your information out there. Again, Rod mentioned earlier, you have the time now. Now's the time to set aside a portion of your day to grow your business. So get yourself out there online. And then of course, social media, learn the platforms. You don't have to learn them all at once, but get familiar with them. Know where your customers are. Not every business needs to be on every social media platform. But if you know that your target market is on Facebook, then that's where you need to spend your time learning how to that platform. Or maybe you're going for a younger, generation of kids. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. So learn those platforms. So the opportunity's there. If you want to sell online, there's places you can sell on eBay, you can sell on Amazon, you can sell on Etsy. There's places that allow free shopping cart sites where you can put your products online and sell them. So, these opportunities are there. Take advantage of them now while you have the time.
Yeah, great points. Rod, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, great points indeed, and I think it's Keith mentioned something important, that you don't necessarily have to be on every platform. And if you have never done social media, the idea of getting on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat all at once is overwhelming. You again want to sort of step into the shoes of your customers. Where do you think they are? Okay, chances are maybe they're on Facebook, and that's a good avenue for you to pursue. I think we may have it later in the presentation, but I always say, when it comes to this stuff and really everything in business, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You don't need, the best stellar website possible right now. You just need one if you don't have one. And, don't spend months and months trying to make it perfect. Just get the word out. Another thing to keep in mind that's important about social media too is it's not just a one-way street. It's not just a one-way conversation of you, sharing what you need to share with customers. It's a great way to get feedback from customers as well. And by engaging with them in comments and retweets and things like that, you might get an even better feel for what they're looking for. Someone on Twitter or Instagram might post an idea that you hadn't thought of and didn't know people were looking for that. That could be another tool in your arsenal here. So it's important to remember it's a two-way conversation when it comes to social media, and that can be incredibly valuable, especially at a time like this.
Mm-hmm.
Rod, that goes back to what we talked about a little earlier when we were talking about tightening our belts. I've worked with restaurants right now to shrink their menus.
Yep.
The online offerings that they have, obviously the demand isn't there as the same as when they were open for business. So shrink your menu items, but you have social media to go out and ask your customers, what do you want us to feature on this menu, so that you can help, fine tune it and save yourself money instead of spending money and putting every single menu item out there.
And to that point, to show you that this can and does work, the name escapes me, but there's a restaurant in Seattle that I was reading about where the founder owner has been very proactive with social media and doing some of the menu tricks that Keith talked about, essentially pre-selling everything on the menu so that they're not making stuff that doesn't sell. And to give you a glimmer of hope, through all this creativity on social media and otherwise, their business is actually up from this time last year. Is that going to be the case for everyone? No, and I don't want to, sell people on that idea, but it does show you if you're really proactive about this, you will get through it. And in some ways, you may reinvent your business going forward, learning some of these social tactics that you probably should have learned in the first place. Now you have to. It's going to help you get through this and could help you succeed even more down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as getting the word out on social media, I think a lot of small businesses could benefit from just reminding their customers that there's a family behind this small business. I think that's another important step that small businesses can take. Another way I think small businesses can get digital is to learn how to use PayPal or Venmo. There's QuickBooks payments, there's Square. There are lots of other ways that small businesses can accept payments. I know that a lot of small businesses are used to, the point of sale system, but there are lots of other ways that you can go digital and start accepting payments from some of your customers. We have a list here of top tips for digital marketing. So if you need a fast and affordable website, we're going to have an appendix on page 15 for a lot of free low-cost options. Some of those are going to include the ones that Keith had mentioned earlier. Like Rod had said, don't let the best be the enemy of the good when building your website, or just building a social media page. Like you can spend weeks creating the best website imaginable, or you can just build a landing page with some really basic information to let your customers know that your business is still around, keep them updated. Google and Facebook, and from what I've read, other companies are starting to offer free ads to small businesses. Also use social media to get people to your website. A lot of people are still looking for ways to help local businesses. They don't want to see your local business go out of business. So there are people out there that are looking for help. And if you're not listed on social media, then they might end up sending their money to a different business instead of yours. Like Keith said, use Google My Business. It's kind of like the yellow pages of the internet. Google might already have you listed just automatically, but it helps to have control of the Google listing. That way you can really specify like what your business hours are, your exact contact information, and your website. Also, like Keith had mentioned, consider Etsy, eBay, or Amazon. If you sell physical products, you can set up an account on Amazon and sell that way as well. So a lot of things that small businesses also are starting to do is they're starting to figure out how to cut costs. Cash flow may have slowed down, bills are still coming in. So Keith, I'll start with you. How can a small business cut costs quickly to make ends meet?
We touched on this earlier. Again, the first thing you have to do is reach out to those people that you owe money to. So, if it's a bank or your landlord, you start with them. Everybody's in this boat together right now. Everybody understands. So the local banks, I sit on loan review committees. All the bankers are on the table. Every bank that's on that committee, they're all making modifications to loans right now. So you can get, as I mentioned earlier, either interest-only payments or deferments on the loan, where they'll take those payments and just put them to the end of the loan. The same thing goes with your credit card companies, your insurances. First of all, if you're closed, you probably don't need all the insurance that you're paying for right now. So you can save your money there. And that was from a tip I got from an insurance agent. So that's a good one. We didn't touch on this because it's for another one of our webinars, but there's money right now to help you pay your payroll from the government. The Paycheck Protection Plan that they put in place with the new stimulus. So you can go out and work with your local bank to get this financing. And if you use it to keep your people on the payroll, the government will then forgive the loan. So it's that will be released this week. It's definitely something that you should talk to your local bank about. So there's a lot of places where you can cut costs. Again, we talked about shrinking menus and shrinking your inventory right now, or discounting inventory to bring cash flow in. So there's ways to do it. Again, this is about survival right now. So you have to think in terms of short term. What do I need to do to keep myself here when this is over?
Yeah, Rod, do you have anything to add?
No, I totally agree. And I think, the same way we were talking about how customers, don't want to see their favorite businesses go out of business. Same goes for your creditors and lenders and landlords, that everyone knows for the next few months, this is going to be, a major series of IOUs and flexibility, but we will get through this. It's important to always keep that in mind. And everyone you do business with doesn't want you to go out of business either. So they're not necessarily looking to make the quick buck here and get the payments and drive you out of business in the process. There is more and more flexibility as we figure this out. The other thing too is just trying to keep in mind sort of those hidden costs. So the example I've been putting out there is, say you own a sports bar. Okay, no one's in the bar watching sports and you have 12 TVs and probably a giant cable package. All right, now is the time to cancel that cable package because it's literally going to no use. And so it's important to kind of look through your ledger, your balance sheet, and see, what are the typical costs and what simply do not apply in this new normal. And again, it's getting it down. We have here Plugging the Gap, getting it down as low as you can so that you can have cash on hand to get through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some really good points. We have a summary of some top tips that we compiled for cutting costs, and they're kind of going to touch on some of the same points, Keith and Rod, that you guys brought up. But a lot of businesses, they have inventory. You might be able to talk to your supplier and see about returning those, or definitely stop the flow of inventory if you're not able to sell them. Also consider discounting your inventory when you're selling to customers. Maybe sell them in bulk, sell them as a as a bundle at a discounted rate, if that's something your business can afford. Also negotiate payment delays and forgiveness. Like Keith, like you had mentioned, I think earlier about landlords. They're probably not in a position where it's going to be beneficial for them to evict you from the property, because there's not going to be someone else that's going to be able to fill your place because everyone's suffering right now. Also remember that suppliers and like the person you're paying your rent to and everyone you're paying bills to, they might be going through some of those same challenges. If you are open, maybe consider reducing your opening hours. You can cut costs on things like payroll and other associated costs with running your business. Small Business Administration has guidance for getting access to loans, and like you had mentioned, the Payment Protection Program, which is something that we are going to cover in our next webinar. That'll probably come out, I believe, on April 14th is what we're aiming for. So stay tuned for that. If you're signed up to this webinar, I think we'll send an email out to you guys. So another option that small businesses can use is using GoFundMe or other crowdsourcing websites. So GoFundMe recently, they got rid of a lot of the criteria they've used in the past for using the platform and for qualifying to get those funds. So they got rid of their deadlines, they got rid of their goal limits, and they got rid of the requirements to give your backers a reward, because that's traditionally how GoFundMe works. But with COVID-19, they've kind of changed how that works. Keith or Rod, whichever want to start first, do you want to touch on that, on crowdsourcing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a part of crowdfunding campaigns in better times than this, and they can be incredibly effective, and certainly now we've been talking about this sentiment of wanting to help small businesses. But I think, just as we talked about with your social media or your email communication, I think it's about being authentic, being real, and telling a story. It's not just as simple as saying, hey, we need money. Maybe it's a third generation family restaurant, and you can talk about the origins of the business and having gone through tough times before, and how we're planning to stay around for the long haul. You have to kind of appeal to people's emotions. This is an emotional time. I was reading an article about how emotion is becoming more of a cornerstone of advertising now, because we are in this sort of raw and human moment, and people want to hear from real people. So it's about creating that story, telling that story effectively, and getting people to really want to be on board with you as a business and help see you through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how about you, Keith?
Any kind of crowdsourcing campaign has to start with a compelling story. Again, this is where taking that time to learn how to use, say, like a YouTube video or something that you could create to tell your story that you could share on a crowdsourcing platform would come in handy. I have examples here in our local community where, and this is prior to the shutdowns, where businesses were going out of business. And the story, they made the announcement on social media that they were going to close, and their customers actually started GoFundMes on their behalf to save their businesses. And in both cases, it worked. You know, it was able to help keep the business, help them survive. Now, the businesses have to make adjustments in order, they can't continue to operate the same way or they'd be in the same boat. But in this case, you know, this is a whole different scenario. So you need to tell a compelling story. You need to communicate it with your followers on social media. You also need to reach out to certain people to get them involved in the campaign prior to going out on social media, prior to going live, so that it shows there's already an interest. And anytime you can do any kind of press release or you know, a newspaper story that talks about it is going to help spread the message even beyond social media.
And I think in terms of the rewards that you typically see on GoFundMe campaigns and others, you know, in some cases it could be just, you know, this is straight donation at this point. But if you do want to give people added incentive, think creatively about what are some of the rewards you can offer. So, and you want to make it things that have value but don't cost you much or any money out of your pocket. So for example, say you're a restaurant putting together a GoFundMe campaign, you know, maybe one of the rewards for a certain level of backing is, you know, your next 10 orders free delivery or something like that. Or, you know, if it's like the family restaurant I mentioned before, you know, maybe at a certain reward level, you get, you know, a list of their best recipes or something. You're not going to, you know, that doesn't cost you anything. And, you know, chances are you're not going to put yourself out of business by giving away, you know, your secret recipes. So look inside and figure out, you know, what do we have that's of value to people now, but doesn't cost us too much or any money and can help boost the donation levels.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started a small business initiative with GoFundMe recently that I'm going to mention right here. So a lot of things that small businesses can do is they can join the small business relief initiative. They can do that by starting a GoFundMe account. You create an account using your name and your email address. You enter your goal and name your fundraiser, and then select business and entrepreneurs from the drop-down menu. From my understanding, this could potentially open up funding from large businesses. I know Intuit has donated a lot of money. GoFundMe is also donating a lot of money specifically to small businesses. We're going to have lots of free and low-cost marketing and social media tools available after this webinar. A lot of free resources on QuickBooks and other websites, things that'll help break down the latest legislation coming out of Washington. Also, stay tuned for our next webinar, which we're going to cover that, which is really just going to dig deep and figure out exactly you know, what small businesses can qualify for, how they can qualify for it. Things like, you know, can a self-employed person file for unemployment, questions like that. And so this ends our first webinar in this series. In our upcoming webinars, like I said, we're going to talk more about the legislation, and we'll get into more specific things. We'll talk about cash flow, things like payroll. Thank you, Rod Kurtz and Keith Yurgosky, for joining me today. I'd also like to thank our ASL interpreter, Amber Simmons. Everyone on this webinar will be emailed a recording of this webinar. You can also check out quickbooks.intuit.com/smallbusiness for more information on how Intuit and QuickBooks is helping small businesses in the COVID-19 relief effort. And again, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.